Hello, my name is Matthias, and welcome to the weekly Wildcard Draft, where I take a look at what I think is the best squad to have in Fantasy Premier League going forward in the next, usually 4 to 5 game weeks, but now there's only 3 game weeks left, so this will be the best squad for the final 3 game weeks of the season, in my opinion. So this will be like an NBA or NFL style draft, where the number 1 pick in this draft will be the player I deem the most important player to own in Fantasy Premier League currently. And the 15th player will be the player that I'm the most unsure about having in my squad. But he still makes the squad, so it's still going to be a decent player to have in your squad. So I'm going to talk about a bunch of players. It's going to be, I guess, kind of interesting because it is fairly template at this point. There's certain teams that have more games left than others, so they will be getting the high priority in the team. But let's just see what the team looks like. And as always, the number 1 pick is Erling Braut Haaland. Like, he's been the number 1 pick for pretty much the whole season. There's been some points he was actually out of the team for a little while when he had less games than, or fewer games than, other players, but now he has 3 game weeks and 4 games left, so he makes a lot of sense to have. Only team that has more games left than him is Brighton players, and Brighton have really difficult fixtures, so Haaland, simple number 1 pick. He's been the best player in FPL all season, and there's no reason to not own him still. If you don't have him in your team, you're pretty much screwed at this point. So let's just move on to the next guy. Number 2 is Alexander Isak. He makes a pretty big jump from last week, where he was number 7, and that's because he just finished the game away against Arsenal. Newcastle lost 2-0, but Isak was really close to scoring. Only a good save from Ramsdale kept Isak from scoring against one of the best teams in the league. So I think Isak is essential to have going forward. I think he is probably the best captaincy option in this upcoming game week 36. That's something we'll discuss more in the Fantasy Premier League or the FPL Scope podcast that we'll record tomorrow. Kimo, Kevin, and I will each pick one player that we think is the best captaincy option. So Kevin will pick number 1, and he'll pick Isak as his favorite captaincy option, and then Kimo and me, Kimo and I, will have to make other choices than Isak and try to make the case for a different captaincy option. But I think, like I said, spoilers, I think Isak is also my preferred option because he's just so good. Like, in my mind, he's a top 10 player in the Premier League at the moment, right now. And he's going to play either 90 minutes or 20 minutes or at least half an hour. If he doesn't start, he'll come on for the second half and have a decent chance of scoring anyway. So I think for the double game week, I think he'll start the game against Leeds, and then I think he'll be. I actually think he'll start both matches. I think him and Wilson will team up for the second game. So I think Isak will play close to 180 minutes, at least between 120 and 180 minutes, and with those fixtures, Leeds away and then Brighton, who we just saw concede 5 goals against Everton. I think he's going to be the best captain's option. And Leicester at home and then Chelsea away as well. Yeah, it's just amazing fixtures to end the season, and he's so good and plays for such a good team that still have so much to fight for. So Isak is pretty clearly like the number 2 pick for me, because the midfielders, it's kind of hard to choose, as we'll see. We'll get to the first midfielder here. It's still Marcus Rashford. He looked pretty awful against West Ham. Hasn't really been like the top level that he was previously in the season, the last few game weeks. So still a bit unsure about him, but he's still the price 7.0, plays for Man United. He's the focal point for Man United, and they have the easiest fixtures remaining as well. Wolverhampton at home, Bournemouth away, Chelsea at home, and Fulham at home. It's such a good set of fixtures that you really need to have him in your squad. And yeah, he drops down from number 2 to number 3 because of his game against West Ham, but he's still an essential player to own, in my view at least. Moving on to the next pick, and it is Mo Salah. He was not in last week's weekly wildcard drafts. And I brought that up on the podcast with Kevin and Kimo, and they both said I probably should have Salah. And of course, Salah scores straight away, gets 10 points, and proves why he's pretty much always essential in NFL. Like, he's always so reliable, whether it's penalties or just normal tapping goals like he had this last game against Brentford. Salah is always there to provide the goods, and even though they don't have a double game week, they have such easy fixtures as well. Leicester away, Aston Villa, who they destroyed away from home, which is really surprising because Liverpool have been really bad away from home, but they beat Aston Villa 3-1 right after the World Cup break. So I think Aston Villa at home is also a fantastic fixture for them, and then Southampton, who are already down, easy final game of the season. Salah will want to get 20 goals and more than that as well to finish off yet another fantastic season. Salah is just amazing, and you really need to have him in your squad still. So yeah, big error on my part not having him last week, but I've corrected that. He's in the team now, and that means that both Bruno Fernandes and Kevin De Bruyne have dropped out of the squad, but we'll get to that later in the video. Moving on, we have another player who was not in the squad last week, and that was Alexis McAllister. I opted for only Mitoma in midfield and went for the double Brighton defense with Steele and Estepinian. But seeing as they conceded 5 goals against Everton, and McAllister looked really good in terms of non-penalty expected goals as well. Like, he had 2 headers that almost went in, and then he had that kind of lucky goal at the end against Everton, so he got, I think it was 10 points in the end, 9 points or something like that. So it seems like McAllister, if he's played as the number 10, as he was in the second half, he is the most lethal Brighton option, but he's not that much better than the next option, which is Mitoma. So I should really speak about those two guys together. They are the best options, especially now. Well, Solly March got injured. He's not an option in midfield anymore, so the 2 midfielders you should have are McAllister and Mitoma. I think if you have the money, it's pretty easy to swap from March to either one of these guys that you're lacking. But if you don't have the money, like I do in my own personal team, I'm quite unsure what I'm going to do, but we'll get to that in the team selection video on Friday. So we'll get to see that, or you'll get to see that when if you subscribe to the channel. So yeah, that's just a cheap plug there. But yeah, Mitoma is also really good. Really unlucky not to score on the chance against Everton, but I was really lucky for McAllister, who got the goal after it hit the post and then his shoulder and in. But yeah, I think both those guys are really good options, and yeah, they have so many good fixtures, or they have so many fixtures. The fixtures aren't really that good. In particular, they play Arsenal and Newcastle away, which is tough. They play Man City, which is tough. But City is a team you can score against. We've seen pretty much everyone scoring against City, getting 1 goal. But yeah, Southampton at home as well, and Aston Villa away. So many matches to play, so you really need to have triple up Brighton, and I think going with the midfielders is better than having 2 defenders at this moment, especially considering they're playing really tough teams, and they conceded a lot of goals against Everton, who are one of the least threatening teams in the whole league. So either way, McAllister and Mitoma, really good picks, both of them. Let's move on to the next pick, and that is going to be our first defender, and that is still John Stones. I brought in John Stones into my own Fantasy Premier League team this past week, and of course he didn't play against Everton, or not Everton, he's playing Everton now, but he didn't play in Man City's match, and yeah, against Leeds, and they won 2-1. But Stones, I think they were just saving him for the Real Madrid game that I just watched now. I'm recording this right after the Real Madrid game, and Stones, he still looks so offensive. He got tackled right outside the box. He's playing as a midfielder, but he's constantly in the opposition's box, and considering he's so good at set pieces as well, he's going to be, I think he's like the best possibility for like a mega haul from a defender, because I think he is close to getting goals and assists currently, and he's also playing for Man City, who are close to getting clean sheets as well. They never seem to get them, but I think Stones finally will get both the goal and the clean sheet in the same game eventually. So I think he's the best defender to have in the game. Moving on to the next player, we have another striker, and it is Callum Wilson. He did blank against Arsenal after playing like 70 minutes. He's clearly slightly lower down on the totem pole compared to Isak when it comes to nailed onness for Newcastle. Isak is still the preferred option, but it seems like Wilson is going to play either 30 minutes at the end of the game, or he's going to start alongside Isak and play like the 70, 80 minutes he got against Arsenal. So I think Wilson is the best third Newcastle option. I think he, along with defender, we'll get to the defender eventually, but I think Wilson is a really strong option as well. Probably wouldn't captain him. I don't feel that good about him starting both matches in the double game week, but I still think he's a really good player to own alongside Isak, and I think those two guys put together in the same team are really good as well. So yeah, Wilson, great fixtures, plays for a great team, and he's proven the last few game weeks as well. Even with the kind of a struggling game against Arsenal, didn't really get to do much there, but he played against a really good team. So I still think Wilson is an amazing forward to have in Fantasy Premier League. Moving on to the next player, we have Trent Alexander-Arnold. He was the 12th pick last week. He moves up a little bit because yeah, he just looks really amazing yet again. And Liverpool didn't concede against Brentford, and now they have really easy fixtures as well. Leicester away, Aston Villa at home, and Southampton away. I actually think there's kind of a debate going on now about whether you should start Trent Alexander-Arnold or a double game week player, and I feel like I'd rather start Trent rather than the Newcastle defenders or Estepinian even. So that's why he's my second most valued defender, just only after Stones, because in his deep lying playmaking role for Liverpool, he's been so good getting assists. He almost got a goal against Brentford as well, got a clean sheet. He's just back to his best, playing in a position where he doesn't really have to play defensively as much as he has struggled to do this season, and he can show that he's just that offensive, versatile talent that we all know that he is. He's such an amazing player, and he's such an amazing FPL prospect as well. If you can remember from before the start of the season, people were saying that he should be like 9 million, 9.5 million even. I saw some people claim he should be as a defender. But now it will be really interesting to see actually if he gets listed as a midfielder next season or not, because yeah, that's going to be really interesting. But for now, he's a defender. He's 7.5 I think still. So he's an amazing option like he has been for the past few years. So yeah, easy pick for me as well at number 9. Moving on to number 10. This is kind of a tricky pick. I went with Riyad Mahrez. I just feel like Man City's fixtures are so good. Mahrez didn't play at all against Real Madrid. He usually is the one to play in the Champions League matches and don't play in the league matches, but it seems like it's going to be the reverse now. He's going to play in the league and not play in the Champions League. And as we know with Mahrez, is that if he gets playtime, he is an amazing fantasy prospect, whether it's Champions League or if it's Premier League. So I think Mahrez is going to start against Everton. I think he probably starts one of the two double game week games and plays probably 30 minutes in the other one. So I think Mahrez is a good option as well. It's just that little risk of rotation thing that makes me not feel as confident about him, but I feel like he's a decent substitute for De Bruyne if you can't afford De Bruyne. So yeah, I think Mahrez is a good option. He could be a super exposed option. We've seen that in FPL before. If he gets the playing time, he can get the most points out of anyone, really. Even more than Haaland, he's proven at some points this season. So yeah, Mahrez is also a fun pick, especially as a differential if you want to catch up with people ahead of you in your league. I think Mahrez is a really good punt to go for. I think Grealish seems to be the player playing the Champions League, and then Mahrez will play in the actual league. So in the actual league, the Premier League, as it's called. So yeah, I think Mahrez is a good pick. Moving on to the next player, we have Pervis Estupiñán. He's the final Brighton player. He has proven to be really attacking still. We're still waiting for that huge haul. He had a really good double game week last in game week 34. He had clean sheets and he got 15 points, I think, or 17 points, or something like that. So Estupiñán can get goals and assists, and he can get clean sheets, even though they have difficult fixtures. You never know with Brighton. They can win 6-0 against Wolverhampton in one game and then lose 5-1 against Everton in the next game. So yeah, Brighton, I think they have, as they showed in the second half against Everton, they have the offensive firepower to do really well, but I think they just got the tactics wrong against Everton, and Everton were just really up for it for some reason, or not for some reason. They're fighting to stay up, but for some reason everything clicked for Everton finally, and they just beat Brighton. They really caught them by surprise. So I don't think you should be too worried about Estupiñán. I still think he's a great option. He's so offensive, like I said, and yeah, they could get a sneaky clean sheet in one of those three difficult fixtures. And then Southampton at home, that's the fixture you really want him to get, like the big points, Estupiñán. But like I said, if you're in a bind, if you have to bench either him or Trent, I think Trent is actually the preferred option, and that's why I have Trent higher up in this draft. I have Trent as number 9 and Estupiñán as number 11. I think both players are really good starters in either this game week or the next one. So yeah, I think Estupiñán was also good. Moving on to number 12, and we have Fabian Schär. He was really unlucky to get an own goal. He really was also, like, you can blame him for scoring the own goal, but I think if he hadn't intercepted that ball, it would have gone to Ødegaard and it would have been a goal anyway. So he just tried his best to keep it out, but sadly for him, it went into his own net. But Schär as well, offensively, he's proven to be better than Trippier really at the latter half of the season, and also he's cheaper. So yeah, I think he's still a great option. I think he's also someone you can play rather than Estupiñán in this coming game week. But then again, it's reversed in the next game week where Estupiñán has another game against Man City, while Schär has a similarly easy game against Leicester compared to the Southampton game for Estupiñán. But for this game week, I think Schär is better than Estupiñán. But for the long haul with Southampton and Man City in game week 37 and then Aston Villa away, I think Estupiñán slightly edges it over Schär. But I think both those guys are the third best options for Brighton and Newcastle. So I think you should have both of them in your squad really if you can. Moving on to number 13, we have Diogo Dalot. He was kinda surprisingly benched against West Ham. I thought he was kind of nailed in the team because it seemed like he was playing every game, whether it's left back or right back, which Shaw as the center back, but he was rested. Malacia played left back and Wan-Bissaka played right back. I still think Dalot is fine for minutes. I think he's going to start pretty much every single game from now until the end of the season, but the fact that he was started on the bench against West Ham and only played the last 3 minutes makes me a little worried, and that's why he's down to 13th after being number 8 last week. But Man United, they still have the best fixtures remaining. I only have 2 Man United players in this squad. I don't have Bruno Fernandes. I'm going to get to that eventually. I'm going to talk more about the players that I dropped out from last week. But yeah, I think the lot is still... I mean, if you have the money... I don't. That's why I have the lot rather than Shaw. But if you have the money, I think Shaw is the safer option. Shaw is going to play pretty much every game, and he's better for bonus as well. The lot does have the better goal scoring numbers. He has the better underlying stats in terms of goals and assists. But still, I think it's pretty even between Dalot and Shaw, because I still think Dalot will start throughout the season. But yeah, that leaves us with 2 players, and it's the 2 goalkeepers. And there's really a big reason for that, because the starting goalkeeper for me is Fraser Forster. He's going to start for the rest of the season for Spurs, so he's actually a decent option for the price. So if you want to downgrade Raya or Kepa at this point, I think Forster is a decent option if you can't get Steele, if you have 3 Brighton players already, if you don't want to touch the last guy, which is Iverson. Or Iverson, I don't know. He's Danish. But anyways, Iverson as well. It's always going to be the Leicester goalkeeper as the 15th pick. That's sort of been a tradition for this weekly wildcard squad. But yeah, that is the full squad. So as you can see, there's only 4 changes from last week, and that's because we have certain teams that play more fixtures than the rest of the teams. We have Man United, Liverpool, City, and Brighton, which are the main teams to have players from, and that's pretty much what my whole team is at this moment, as you can see. It tells you a little bit about the pricing this season as well, that you can get players from the best teams and still field you can still have the best players from every team, which is interesting this season. I hope the pricing next season is slightly more tricky, slightly more expensive players from the better teams, because yeah, we have a really good, strong team, I think. Too strong of a team, really. Moving on to the players that were left out from last week, we have 4 players. It is De Bruyne and Fernandes. They were actually number 3 and number 4 last week, but this time De Bruyne was back. He actually started against Leeds, but didn't get a point return. He was close to getting assists and stuff, but I don't know. He's sort of not been the best in the league lately. I think he's focusing more on the Champions League. As you can see against Real Madrid, he scored a really nice goal. I think he's going to start most games in the league, but there's still that doubt about him playing every game, because you can always get Alvarez into the team and have De Bruyne benched. So yeah, that's why I feel like I'm in a better spot if I have Mahrez rather than De Bruyne. So that's something I gotta figure out for my own team, because I have De Bruyne in my personal team. So I gotta figure out if I want to downgrade him to Mahrez to spend money elsewhere, but I'm not 100% sure. Fernandes as well, just couldn't afford him, and there's so many good midfielders. I felt like one of the Brighton midfielders is better because it's cheaper. Fernandes as well. He's had really good underlying stats, but just hasn't performed in Fantasy Premier League that much lately. That could still change, but I don't have the money for him. So if you do find the money for him, then sure, you can bring him in. I think he's still a good option. Then we have Jason Steele. He's kind of dropped. Well, firstly, he conceded 5 goals against Everton, which is a huge sin from his part. But that also leaves me questions about his starting position as well for Brighton. Don't feel 100% sure that he's going to start. So that's why I opted going with Forster as well, and going with the 3 Brighton players, 2 Brighton midfielders and a Brighton defender as well, rather than having Steele in goal. Finally, Summerville was just like a throw-in cheap option to have last week, so it doesn't really matter that he's out of the squad. He was always just a bench fodder option anyway, and this week's weekly wildcard draft, you pretty much have a full 15 or 14, I guess, because the Everson pick is just a backup. But all the other players can start, so it just depends if people are fit to play and stuff. People like Stones could be benched in the first game week. Mars as well. You never know if he's going to start, so he's also a decent player to just have lying there if you need him. But yeah, that's the full squad. Pretty happy with the squad. There's going to be some tough decisions on who to start, I guess, if you have this squad. That's the only drawback. I feel like you could maybe save up some money somewhere, maybe go from Mahrez to someone like Somerville, and then try to upgrade one of the Brighton midfielders to someone like Fernandes. I guess you could do that. If you don't like Wilson, you can always go with someone else in attack as well, but I don't feel like there are that many good strikers. Maybe you go with a Brighton attacker. That's kind of the optional thing to do here. You can go with Enciso, who's looked really good. Came on in the second half against Everton and sort of helped Brighton look a lot better in the second half. You could also go with someone like Welbeck or Ferguson. Ferguson looked really good as well against Everton. So yeah, there are some options you can go with rather than Wilson if you want to. Maybe go with a punt on someone like Joe Linton or something in midfield as well. Or Murphy. Jacob Murphy is like a cheap and still pretty good fancy option in midfield as well. So there are some tricky options you can choose as well, but I've gone with a pretty template team. Pretty standard players here that I feel like we'll finish the season strong and give you the edge you need in your mini league to win your mini league. I am pretty far off that personally. I've had a really terrible season, but next season is my season, 100% for sure. I'm going to win the whole damn thing. Not even my mini league, I'm going to win the whole thing. You heard it here first. I'm going to talk that into existence, speak it into existence, as it were. But now I'm rambling again, like I am usually at the end of these videos, and that's it for me. Like and subscribe, all that good stuff, and I'll see you next time. Bye.